Everyone, to Ascension in the Raw, episode 2. We are so excited to be here with you. I'm so grateful. Happy day. I'm here with Annette Shaner of the Art of Intuition. And today we're going to talk about holograms, which can be a lot of things. And before we jump in, I just want to invite a moment here for us to kind of settle in, get into the space, cultivate some presence together. And I want to share this beautiful visual. So, just inviting you wherever you are, whether you're here live with us or later on the replay, to just take a moment and with your imagination, envision all 37 trillion cells of your body as satellite dishes soaking up the sun, bringing in the golden, warm sunlight. You can also imagine all 37 trillion cells of your being as individual miniature radiant golden suns or crystal solar discs, but just playing with the imagery and just basically telling your entire being here in this now to unify and open up and bring in beautiful radiating energy to assist you to feel amazing wherever you are and whatever you're working through. We're going to go into some deeper stuff today with the deprogramming and the hologram topic, which goes in a lot of directions. So I'm going to give the mic over to Annette and we will jump in. So welcome, welcome all. Thank you, Annette.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very happy to be back again. I always enjoy. My cat. It was funny because I was a cat in here with me, and she started moving around when you said "soak in the sun," and she started walking around, and I'm like, she's soaking in the sun. It's always interesting to me to watch how because pets go through ascension just like we do. They just don't have all the baggage, the human consciousness baggage, attached to them. They don't have the so and so screwed me over when I was 18 years old kind of stuff going on. So they tend to me go through it a lot more organically, but I always look at mine like they're like different types of galactic beings, especially cats. Cats to me are much more galactic than dogs are, kind of trapped in cat bodies. And they're like, I don't want to chase this mouse, but I have to. It's just in my cat programming. I wish I wasn't in a cat body. But anyway, I think the hologram, when we talk about holograms, I definitely probably don't see holograms maybe the way you're going to explain it. So I'm kind of curious to get a look at a hologram and how we start to kind of peel things apart. I know this week triggers was a big one that kept coming to me, and what that word means, because I think it gets thrown around a lot. It's been very bastardized, I think, in human consciousness, about what does that mean? People say, oh, I was triggered. Oh, I was triggered. I was triggered. But I'm like, what exactly does that mean when people keep saying that? And do people know what it means when they get triggered? Because I always feel like it's always, especially when our human consciousness in the beginning gets triggered, we always kind of point back to other people doing it. And we don't realize that they were supposed to do it. And it's about us. It's not real about them, but we attach them to it because we always want to attach something to it. Our human always wants to attach something to it because it gives us a reference point. It gives us something to look at, it gives us something to blame. And our human consciousness is always going to want to do that. So we're kind of moving through that. And I think that would go back into the hologram part of it too, because we kind of create that. We create that whole picture of what a trigger is and who's doing it, and it's them, not us, kind of thing. And I know in the beginning of my awakening, I did a lot of that, because you don't want to believe it's you. It's that old adage, it's me, not you. But when we're humans, we don't really mean that. We mean it's really you when we say it in our human consciousness. But when we get into our awakening and ascension, when we say it's me, not you, we really want it to be someone else, but it's really us. It really is us. And I think to kind of focus on that is one direction we can also go with this. So I'm going to mute and I'll let you go ahead and get started, and then we can pass back off.
Okay, thank you. And for our friends in the chat, if you could just confirm that you can hear us, we're getting some notes about sound. but we take turns muting. So I am now unmuted. So hopefully you all can hear. Yes, thank you so much, Annette, for bringing us to that most important piece, which is so essentially when I was thinking about the topics for this, it was about holograms in on so there's so many ways to talk about this. And you went to what I feel is the most crucial one is that we are the observer and thus the creator as well, regardless of, whatever. Like we set it all up in order to experience. And so then that brings in like the holographic universe, that whole holographic, like we are a piece of the whole, and it is a piece of us. And it's like this mirroring that's going on. And the big word the last week, or since even last time that we got together, was the self deception, the self delusion, which is also a hologram. And so it's like, what are we seeing? How are we interpreting it? Which aspect of us is seeing it and interpreting the information? And where are we in this process? So great questions to ask. First off, is what aspect of me, what part of me, or what story, what part of me in my life, perhaps an age, a different age of childhood, is responding to this? Am I in my unified state responding to this? And another fun phrase that came through this week, because it was a trigger party week. And on that note, happy full moon in Leo, everyone. Speaking about the kitties and the Lyran beings, the feline beings. So yay for that beautiful energy too. And just know if you are experiencing a lot of emotion, welcome Colette, welcome Rixa, welcome Marat. If you are experiencing a lot of emotion, you're observing tenderness, even grief, just know that this beautiful Leo energy is here to support us in deeper layers of heart opening. And so it feels so appropriate that our show got postponed due to the weather, to be today, our first show being the new moon, and now our next show being on the full moon in Leo, because the Leo energy is all about the heart. So as we are opening our heart, pieces are coming off and we are de-armoring where we had to essentially go through this existence without feeling in order to make it to this point. So a lot of people I'm observing that are new to the journey are particularly susceptible, if we want to say, to the holograms, meaning that they are exploring, well, what is happening right now? Why am I feeling sad? And finding words for it. Is it depression? No, I just feel sad. Oh, and exploring the story and like the tunnel or the rabbit hole that's associated with this experience. I also wanted to share, for like unconscious and conscious work with this, that you can use songs as a hologram to tap into deeper emotional undercurrents and different aspects, and also movies as a hologram, because our emotional realm is so powerful and complex, and it is new for many of us in our mastery. And it is such a vital component because that is the energy in motion, as we are an energetic matrix. So just wanted to share many ways of looking at holograms. And a hologram can be a belief system that could be erroneous, that's not serving you, right? Where we are self deceiving or self deluding. Also, the power of our emotions, it can be so intense, and it's these waves coming through us, and we just perhaps want to run from it, or we don't feel equipped to deal. And all it requires is presence and just honoring. And a big piece is, as you're going through these, let love stay with you. Stay in your love with yourself. Don't abandon yourself. Don't leave. Some wonderful imagery that came through working with a colleague this week when we're talking about trauma. Trauma pieces are holograms, right? Because something can happen and it's not intentionally like meant to trigger, but then it does trigger. And then you have to question, was it intentional or not? Did I set it up that way? So that I could become aware of the fact that am still holding this separation inside of me, or this distortion, or this story, which we could say victim consciousness, right? The victim consciousness. Um, but a phrase that came through this week was that when we're stuck in our head, it's a pretzel hell of lies. And so that's like one of the questions. How can we tell? How can we tell where we are? How can we tell if we're unconscious or we're conscious? Well, a lot of it can be through the emotions that you're experiencing. And also the words that you're starting to observe, the phrases that you're starting to observe come up and out. And you want to ask, and we've said this before, well, who said that? Go through the who, what, when, where, why, how, the whole thing to determine what is this, what part. But a big piece is we will find ourselves stuck in our heads again. And it's okay. And we don't want to beat ourselves up, right? Because we're learning how to be holographic. We're learning how to be quantum. That's the point of this show, is to assist everyone to just drop the pressure, just release the judgment and the pressure of what is happening, or, oh, I fell off, or whatever, I got stuck in my head again. It's okay. We're all doing that. It doesn't matter how much you know or how much skin you have in the game. There's going to be more, and eventually there won't be, but who cares? We're here now, right? So there's a lot more to share, and I'm going to pass it over to Annette, because I know she's getting warmed up over there with all her beautiful Valentine's colors.
I actually bought this last Valentine's Day, this little pink monkey. That's what I bought last Valentine's Day. I was lugging this thing around the whole store. I didn't want to lay it down because I thought it was going to get dirty. So I was trying to lug it in my car. I was like, oh, I need that. I need this pink monkey. Boy, you said so much. And I was going to bring a pen this week so I could write it down, and then I got it, and then it was gone again. I started watching the show Severance, let me know if my sound's okay, because I can switch to a different internet and I'm not okay, because I have another one I can switch to a different band, a different channel there, and I might get a little bit better. I started watching the show Severance, where they sever their consciousness, and it's a whole thing where they put a chip in their head and they sever their consciousness. So when they go to work, they don't know anything about what happens when they're not at work, and when they're not at work, they don't know anything about what happens at work. So they split off, which I thought was pretty interesting, because that's basically what happens in Ascension. So when in the show, they call them innies and outies. The innies are at work and the outies are the ones that are out in the world, right? And when they're out in the world, they have no idea what's going on. And the innies are kind of new to the world. They just know work. They don't know anything else. They don't have a lot of that human baggage going on about relationships outside, because they don't know anything about them. They're just doing their thing every day. And Ascension, it kind of reminded me a lot of Ascension in a sense, because you start to forget, a lot of the holograms and what you believed in before. You start to forget about your human life, and you start to forget about things that you used to care about and things that used to matter to you. And they just don't matter anymore. We go through so much of our life, our human life, caring about so much external stuff, what we have, what we don't have, what relationship we're in, what relationship we're not in. And we measure a lot of that by those things. And the hologram is not very pretty unless it's very spruced up with everyone else thinking it's pretty. We ourselves will never think it's pretty. Our human consciousness will never think it's enough. Someone else has to tell us it's enough, right? And then we still don't think it's enough, but it makes us feel a little bit better about it, because someone else values it. We'll never value it ourselves. The human consciousness doesn't know how to value anything. It doesn't matter what it has. It doesn't matter. I've met so many people, no matter how much money they had, they were like, I had one person, he said, oh, money makes me happy. And I'm like, oh, it doesn't make you happy. It just makes it easier. Now, money makes things a little bit easier, but it's never in the history of the world made anything, made anybody happy. Some of the most unhappy people I know were people who had a lot of money, because it didn't make them happy. And you see so many people thinking that's the missing link. And we spend a lot of time in our human consciousness kind of waiting for that missing link, trying to figure out what that link is, not understanding that we can't find it. That link is in our body. It's kind of stuck in our body. So I do a stream once a week on Twitch. We talk about the Matrix and getting away from the Matrix and going away from the Matrix. And it's funny how many people just really identify with that term, but really even Ascension, it's a Matrix. It's just a different hologram. It's a prettier hologram in some ways, but it's still a hologram. And when we talk about, as you just said, whether we get triggered intentionally, well, to me, it's always intentional. We always set up the triggers, right? We always know that. And, nothing is, we can get pissed at the messenger that did it, but where they were supposed to do it. They were supposed to show us, oh, wait a minute, I just got upset about it. And to me, a trigger is just an emotion. It's something emotion. It just set me off and I didn't feel at peace inside anymore. That's just what it means to me. And it doesn't have to mean I get pissed off and slam shit around. It's just all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that bothered me. Oh, it hurt my feelings, or oh, it made me sad, or well, it just kind of brought up sadness inside. No one really has the power to make you anything. We attach it to someone else because we don't want to believe we carry all that. We don't want to believe that all that stuff is inside of us. So we want to say it's that person. That person did it. And we do the same thing with, oh, that person makes me happy. If we don't know that person, I can't be happy. We attach the happiness they activate within us as if that person is responsible for it. If I don't have that person, I can't be happy. It is the whole thing about the human consciousness, and even into the awakening and into a lot of ascension, we still try to measure ourselves by that human beliefs of what matters and what's successful, what's not successful, what works, what doesn't work, what it's supposed to look like, and when it doesn't look like that. And it takes a while and I still find myself doing it. I'll still go back and say, well, that's not working. And then I'm like, well, it's not working because it's not working from a human perception of what's working mean, or what does it mean for something to work. I think we get into so many different parts of ascension where it just starts to really flip and flop, where we feel like we're doing okay, and then we get deeper into our stuff and we thought we cleared it, but we hadn't cleared all of it, and then we're not doing okay again, and then we're like, oh wait, okay, now we got to step back because some shit's not right again, or shit doesn't feel right again. And one thing I did want to touch on, and I'm going to kick it back to you after this. There's a big misconception, and I had it too, that just because it's highest aligned or soul aligned, it doesn't mean it lasts forever. And it doesn't mean it's always going to be. And we have this thing that if it's soul aligned, it's going to last forever. Or, oh my God, we're soulmates. We're going to be together forever. Very rarely not. Very rarely you are. And everyone's technically a soulmate anyway, or twin flame, or however you want to go down the rabbit hole of those topics. But just because things are highest aligned, just because it's a prettier illusion we're in, it doesn't mean it's not going to be forever, because we keep shifting and changing. And if everything else doesn't shift and change the exact way we do, which, newsflash, spoiler alert, nothing is going to. People are in too many different paths to me. I've never been with anyone in my reality that's moved the same way I have moved. We might come back together here and there, but everyone's on a separate path and on a separate contingency. And when we're doing that, it's really, really kind of tough to stay together for long periods of time. And I think that's why we get triggered by so many different things after a while, because we kind of want that. Our human kind of wants that consistency of just something consistent. And when you don't have anything consistent, everything just kind of starts to go, a lot of different ways. I did see someone put a question about quantum, and I want to kick it back to you, and I'm going to let you take it, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, thank you. Love everything you've shared. And yeah, someone asked about what do we think about quantum? The first thing is we feel quantum because it's a holistic state of understanding. So it's infinite, it's here, and the best way is to feel it throughout your being and not think about it, because if you think about it, then you're in a pretzel and it's not fun and you're not really perceiving it. Then in totality, you're just assigning a value or something that is consistently shifting and changing and morphing. So it's an isness quantum. I want to share, I want to go through a few things of notes that I took for holograms just to assist people, because this is such a big topic. And a hologram can be intentional, it can be unconscious, it can be a song, as I shared earlier. Essentially, we're using the energetic, the frequency, the energy, the emotion, whatever it is, the symbolic thing, the person that triggered you, or the instance, whatever the thing is, we're using that as a catalyst. So I love when Annette was talking about triggers, and I love when you're sharing about kind of removing the whatever, that it's a bad thing. I think that we need to evolve into understanding that we're going to make mistakes. And it's better to make mistakes than not do anything, like, than be like paralyzed and not willing to try or like willing to fuck up. Like, and that's something new where I'm also like, that's true. And again, we're going to flip it on a million different angles, is that we also want to do highest aligned and appropriate and all of this, and it's all relative with consciousness, so it's challenging, it's really hard, but our intention, like, what is your intention? But with holograms, here's some more examples of what a hologram could be. It could be the delusions of fear, like mind chatter, mental stuff like mental illness, paranoia, fear, doubt, trauma from the past. It can be, hi, Bucky, welcome. It can be PTSD that just comes up and out of the body suddenly, that could be triggered by a photonic light blast or what's going on with Uranus, like this high voltage hitting the nervous system right now. So, you want to start exploring your calibration tools, working with your nervous system, regulating your nervous system, soothing your body as well in order to find your stasis again, your calm, because you'll notice that it's really hard to um, find your center quickly when you're triggered, like when you're having a trigger response or some kind of a reactive response because of what's happening at the nervous system level and like your own neural chemistry. So there's a great deal of physical body mastery with this as well. Um, but your breath work, really important. But to simplify, you can test your frequency. You can test what is happening using it as a feedback of like, is my heart open? When something happens, is my heart open with how I'm receiving this? Meaning that you're in that quantum state of divine mind versus the separated off little mind, the linear mind, the critical mind, the mind that's always shit talking, always finds a problem with everything. Like, that's the ego self, that's not your true authentic self. And another thing Annette mentioned, I was like, oh, here's another example of holograms with belief systems, is also social imprinting, the matrix itself, right? The cookie cutter reality of, you go to college, you get your degree, you get a job, you get married, you get a white picket fence, you have 2.5 kids, whatever, like all that weird cookie cutter shit. That's all hologram as well, which has a purpose to keep everyone plugged in, right? As extensions of the machine to serve the machine, right? Which is not life. It's not warm. It's not the future, humanity, or any of it, right? It's a means to fulfilling a different dream. And that brings me like to visuals of the Matrix too, where they're all just energy pods, they're just plugged into this system being used. And that brings me back to emotion and why our emotions are so powerful. And it's so important that we master our emotions now. And so the big thing this week was get out ahead of it. What does that mean? Well, we are getting kicked into an entirely, like, really, really powerful and levels of discomfort with these frequencies, these high voltage frequencies. And I want to put a PSA out there for everyone here and those on the replay. We are going to begin to see rampant mental illness issues and psychosis, spiritual psychosis. We've been talking about it since last June. Now it's going to start coming really deep with the energetics that we're witnessing, because it's the unresolved trauma just being forced up, just shoved up. Like, imagining like when you have an earthquake, right? And the plates hit each other and it juts up and it creates like this huge mountain or a volcano or like a pimple getting ready to erupt of what has been suppressed, right? And that's why this work is so critical, to share this information, to support one another through this. Um, Other ways of markers to tell what's going on, where you are, is your body sensations. Are you having tension in your body all of a sudden? Are you having pain somewhere? Are you noticing that your chest is tight and it's hard to breathe, or your belly is tight? Are you holding your breath? Are you feeling knots, like sensations of knots in your body, right? Also, injuries. A lot of the time, we'll make ourselves sick. Like, your universe will help you get sick or injure you to slow you down and like stop you from continuing to go in a direction or an energy or a hologram, a thought form, a train track in your mind that is so not working for you, right? So you see unconscious ones and like where it's arising as a hologram. And technically, everything's a hologram. This is quantum consciousness. We're talking about holographic realities here. But what about going back to the Matrix again? What about using it for operating systems upgrades? For upgrading your consciousness, where you literally can plug yourself in using quantum entanglement to anything to support yourself with your mastery, whether it's just I would like to feel more peace right now, right? Or I want to explore this concept. And that reminds me of the movie where they plug Neo in and he's learning all these fantastic martial arts, high level skills. And technically he already knew all of them. They're already all in his data bank, but they have to be retrieved. And so this is some of the fun stuff of the holodeck is what I was told it was called. And if you remember the original Star Trek series, they had a holodeck and it was a training ground. So it was like a virtual reality program. You set the program and then you enter the simulation and you're using it consciously for your growth. So if you could imagine a parallel version of this where you didn't consciously today program it, but you did before you came. So you can look at your triggers as a hologram for your growth, right? That mirroring to see what's in my subconscious is challenging for me to see right now, right? So there are multiple ways to do this consciously. But the holodeck is a really fun one. You can program just through your desire and ask your universe anything that you wish to learn about, anything you wish to feel and experience or bring forth within you right now. And I say peace because a lot of this emotional stuff we're going through, we feel, separated for a moment from our peace. So you start with peace, but then you can bring in beautiful mastery systems through, more light codes through. So that's just a little bit about this. And if anyone has any questions, please put your questions in. And I'm going to pass it to Annette and her kitty.
She was chewing on the cord. And I was like, stop chewing on the cord. Can't chew on the cord. Go on. Don't chew on the cord. I think it was interesting when you talked about, I do want to throw one thing in about Leo. Leo's also a big finishing sign. They're great finishers, Leos. They're known for that. There's always that saying, if you want something started, give it to an Aries. If you want to finish it, to give it to a Leo. So we're really in that time of the year, to me, where we're finishing out the 2024. There's usually always summer 2024 that falls into the next linear year. Because even though we don't so much go by linear year, to me, they do have a cadence to them. They have something new we're going to focus on, whether we start them boots on the ground in April of that year. And, we're still kind of tying up to 2024. There are new downloads for 2026 and August of 2025. It's kind of all over the place as far as when we start getting certain marching orders of what we're going to focus on. And sometimes we get the consciousness, we touch the consciousness of it, but we don't actually start doing it until maybe we're clearing what can't go forward while we do that thing, whatever our next thing is. So I feel like it's a lot of finishing, because we normally don't finish everything in that calendar year. We still have some leftover stuff to do. Usually we had a final push of clearing at the end, and then now we're going into the next thing. And, I never really think of, I've done a lot of videos on what a human consciousness would say was some kind of mental illness, right? Because I think we look at it kind of differently. Because if you say, I'm not coping with human consciousness, then a lot of traditional human health systems is going to try to get you to try to cope with it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, we're going to figure out how we can cope with it. It's the same thing we used to do even in the metaphysical world, when we talked a lot last week about taking everything in the fourth dimension. When you're in that fourth dimension, you're trying to take everything and plug it in. And a lot of the times what we do is we try to take a situation in our human consciousness that doesn't work and take something from the metaphysical world and plug it in so we can make it work, like energy bubbles. I'm gonna protect myself from energy vampires, all that stuff we would say. Because we're having a hard time existing where we're existing at, and we're trying to use things to cope with human realities because it's so hard to cope with these realities. It's so hard for us to be in them because our consciousness and our body's consciousness doesn't want to be there anymore. So a lot of times I'll look at what someone would, a human, you see a lot of advertisement now for a lot of mental health. You know, if you watch any kind of mainstream media, if you watch any YouTube, you know, you see it constantly. It is one right after the other, one right after the other, constantly, constantly, constantly. You see it, see it, see it. And because there is so much going on, and as Marissa said, there's so much coming up with people, but if we can twist it and look at it like it just, they're having we start having a hard time coping with human consciousness. And I don't think anyone that's gone through parts of awakening and parts of ascension, if any human person looked at your life and how you started and where you are now, they would probably say you need to see somebody, you know, because it's not falling in line. And to me, it goes beyond just, you know, get married and have kids. It's just fitting into that world of what we do in a human consciousness, you know, what we believe. You know, we believe we're all supposed to just get through this together, and you can go with it. You know, everything has to, your credit score has to matter, and you have to do all this stuff, and you have to get this house, and then you have to get the next house, and you have to do your student loans, or even if you don't want to do that, you go a different way. You know, even people that are the mavericks in the human consciousness are still trying to conform to something. Even if they're trying to conform with something outside human consciousness, there's still a conformity into conforming to some type of metaphysical thing. That's why I always kind of throw religion into even the fourth dimension, even though it's a very accepted part of the third dimension. It's accepted as for a way to people to cope with human consciousness. You know, it's just an accepted way for people to cope with there's something else. To me, fourth dimension is always there's just something else. You know, I can't see it. It's something else. And that to me falls into that whole thing. And religion is just something that's more accepted, you know, in human consciousness. It's a little more accepted as to what how it drives people, but it's still a conformity to that. You're still conforming to something outside to make it better. And a lot of fourth dimension is something outside to make it better, something outside to make it work, something outside to make this not hurt so bad, something outside to make these situations not feel so hard and not feel so cold. And you know, you will find that the human consciousness and and the realities we set with those, they will ride with you until you go against them, you know. And then there was a song out a couple years ago called, you know, are we written in the sand or are we written in the stars, right? Human consciousness is all, every reality you create is written in the sand. You know, it has no foundation. And the minute you stop putting your energy into any of those realities, you will be fucking shocked how fast that shit disintegrates in front of you. You could have thought everyone else was in that reality with you, but they were in that reality for what they were getting from you doing everything in that reality. The minute you stop doing it, all of a sudden, no one else is doing it. And they fall apart very fast. And another reason is our body consciousness has reached a vibration now where it can't hold the reality anyway. So that's another reason it falls apart, because we can't support it energetically. We're two different frequencies. So you can look at that a lot of different ways. But the minute I stopped putting any type of energy into stuff in the human consciousness, it would just disintegrate. I mean, it was just mind-blowing to me how quickly, how much you could work on something and work on something for years and years and years and years, and get to a point where the minute you stop putting any energy into it, the whole thing just fell apart. And you're like, wow, that really wasn't what I thought it was, you know? And that's the old saying too. It's not what I thought it was. Well, you know, nothing ever is, because we always think about it at a different frequency in a sense. You know, a lot of us, we always dream the future. I'll always say, you never dream the past, right? Our soul has no interest in it. You know, you're dreaming not even really future and past. You're dreaming different dimension, different quantum consciousness. If you want to go back to quantum, you're just dreaming everything your other selves are always doing all the time. It just feels like we try to segregate it because that's how our human wants to segregate it. It's a different frequency. You know, we haven't gotten to that frequency yet, but we'll see something and we'll be like, wow, I want to experience that. And then our human wants to make that happen. You know, let me make it happen. If I'm supposed to meet this person, you know, let me go meet that person. I'm supposed to meet that person. I knew I was supposed to meet a person years before I ever met him. And I keep seeing him and I want to go meet him, but I'm like, no, I have to wait because it's not time yet. Because if I try to do it too fast, then the frequency is not the same. So now I've shifted that whole reality back to a different frequency because of all the lack energy that created it was not what I saw to begin with, right? So that's why we can see something one way. And then when our human consciousness gets involved in it, because our human's always going to want to push it forward, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. It doesn't want to wait around to let it go organically. Even though we technically don't wait around, we're creating, but we're not creating in that linear way. We're not creating in that A plus B. We're not going to do C, D, and E. We're going to do E, F, and G, and then we might go back and touch on Z, and then we're going to do M, and then we're going to go do A and B. Because it's a quantum way to look at it. It's a holographic way to look at it. It's not going to be the direct route our human wants to go, because that direct route is not the way that's going to get you to what you've seen. Especially when you start tapping in first to the dream world, because that's the first where, if you have not seen quantum consciousness, you don't understand what it means. You have a hard time putting you're trying to feel, you're trying to think about it, which that doesn't really work. You got to feel it. Start asking to experience it in your dream world, because that's the first place you're going to be able to open up to the massiveness of how much of you there is. And trying to logic it out, you're missing out on a lot. The dream space is the only space in the beginning where you're going to be able to touch on anything. It's the only space you're going to be able to really hit on anything, because your body consciousness is too low when you're awake. Your brainwave state's different. You're in that beta brainwave state. You're not able to connect. That's why I would tell people, when people get into telepathy and they're trying to send messages just to test it out and have fun with it, people are going to pick it up at different times, because everyone's going to be plugged in the same way. Someone might not get a message till 3 weeks later. They'll get it, but they might not get it till they're sleeping, because they're not in the frequency to pick it up. Their radio waves are not picking it up. For a while, when I'd be talking to different people, I would always move my head around, and because I'm picking up on something different than what they're saying. The frequency of what they're saying is not what the words are saying. So I would always tilt my head and move my head around. I'm like, or when I would used to do readings years ago, I would do that. I would just tilt my head and move my head around, because I'm picking up on something different. And in a way, to me, that's quantum. There's more there that meets the eye. And if you can only, feel into one or two of the things, that's how we begin. But I think when we just say the word, it's such a big word, and I see the word thrown around. Even all the superhero shows are all quantum now, multiverse, and everything's quantum, and there's 100 of different, every character's got a zillion different people of it, and everybody's doing everything. Because it's so big in media now. But if people can see it in media and go, yeah, that's really cool, all the Marvel heroes are now in, the multiverse. But when you say it in our own lives, people are like, whoa, that's way out there, I watch it on TV and they're activated by that, and that's cool. But when you try to bring it into your own consciousness, everyone's like, whoa, now you're too much. Now it's too much. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to kick it back to you.
Oh my gosh, I was taking frantic notes because you shared so much amazing, amazing insight there. And I want to thank you for touching on the dream world again. That is so important. And what I wanted to also add to that is putting your body in water. So we joke around about the bathroom and how it's like the teleportation station, and like all the transmuting, like the codes coming through you. So there's something to be said about the electromagnetism of the body with water, whether you're drinking water, you're in the tub, you're in the shower, even on the porcelain throne, porcelain, highly conductive. So, being around water or putting your body, submerging your body in water also can assist you. And a really fun thing to do is, like, if I know right now it's very cold, but so we're not really looking at the swimming pool yet. But when you can go into a swimming pool or a body of water, even just waist deep, and just gently trail your arms and your fingers through the surface level of the water and feel the resistance of the water against your palm and the back of your palm. And then start to imagine, and you can just pretend you're doing that right now because you know what it feels like, and realize that you're in an ocean right now of energy, of plasma energy. It is all around, and so that's why, like, the Tai Chi Gong can really assist you with starting to, what's the word, sensitize yourself, your beingness to the fact that, we're really not solid either. So there's wonderful ways to play with starting to kind of like dismantle the physicality and like dissolve your beingness into the energetic essence, just simplifying. So thank you, because you gave me all those like things to share with what you were saying. And I wanted to also talk about, when we talk about mental illness, this is so important because the human ego consciousness is mental illness. It is mental illness. And that human ego consciousness is always going to be upset. It's always going to be blaming or mad about something or not enough of something. Or I wrote down all kinds of things like a feeling of disconnect, which causes madness for sure. We could say like part of that mental illness is that disconnect, where they call it the wetico, like where we are like at a soul level, like bankrupt of the animating energy that we are as divine life force energy, right? Like that separation. And so when I say get ready for the pandemic of mental illness, it's spiritual psychosis, it's people looking for themselves. And it's challenging because here we have these mainstream concepts of what medicine is. And like, if you look at the origins of psychology and psychiatry, they're very dark. They're not, you know, that's all a hologram too. That's all more programming too. And so the ancient ways, our ancestors and like the shamanic perspectives, and ultimately being with Gaia, being with your body, being with your breath, but obviously we want to support people to find the assistance that they need. And I was sharing with one sister today, look, if your family is super, super human and it's too much for them to try to cope with themselves and add on the spiritual aspect right now, just encourage them to go get human help. Encourage them to go to an MFT or whatever, like a professional for now, just to get the baseline so that they can operate. And then we can bring in the higher frequencies. So it depends on the case, of course. But that's what I wanted to share is like, I want people to know that the ego human is always going to be so unhappy, and you have to just transcend it. You have to just finally realize, oh my God, I don't want to exist in this hologram of this hellscape of, never good enough and always picking. And like, it feels like hell to me. And that's why I say, look, when you're stuck in your head, it's a pretzel hell of lies, because it's not the whole access, it's not the whole truth of your beingness, right? And so there comes a point where all of us decide to leave that hologram, or meaning no longer allow it to drive, because it's never going to change, right? It's always going to be in these whatever, whether it's an addict, all of these pieces, they're never going to change. And you can accept it and love it and say, thank you so much for showing me. And when you feel the disparity there, it's really your soul calling you to it, like your higher self, your universe. So when you feel that disparity or that suffering, it's because you pinched yourself off, you've wandered off the trail. Just come back on the fucking trail. It's okay. So these are such massive topics that I'm really, really grateful to go into together, because we're on the edge of more wonderful waves of awakening for humanity. And the visual this morning, so I was feeling so much compassion for everybody that's really new to this. Like, there's a lot of people that are really going through it, and just Divine Mother is sending the whole world a hug. The whole world is embraced in this beautiful hug with Divine Mother. Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, like the beautiful Divine Mother, Divine Cosmic Mother, she's here. So just send that out to everyone. Just send hugs to the whole world right now, everybody, because the shift is hitting the fan. Like the ascension is hitting us, and the physical stuff, like it's really intense. I had a really hard week myself, getting derailed. So that's where the feedback was, get out ahead of it. Get out ahead of it, because with how intense the frequencies are and the photonic light is, you could be going along and you're feeling really great. And then wham, the biggest piece comes, like really big. Like I'm talking ancient, ancestral, like totally it's like the trigger has you by the balls, like has you by the root. And it's like, rah, and you want to be able to handle it. You're going to get triggered. You're going to have all the experiences. But if you can handle it with grace and handle it privately. Like, to me, that's the mastery, right? And so the only way we get to that is making mistakes. So yes, I've made some mistakes, of course, but I'm grateful that I did, because boy, did I learn, right? And I asked my universe, how can I avoid, so to say, really having such a strong response? And how can I keep it more internal and then bring myself publicly to the table with grace? And the universe said, get out ahead of it. So we need to understand the seriousness, SIRIUS, that it's going to take a lot more diligence and self discipline. And what I mean by the self discipline is the self care, the self love, giving yourself. If you can recognize the patterns of the aspects of you that get the most triggered, like, oh, yeah, that's me when I was 5 and I was bullied, or, whatever, you know yourself better than anyone. Get really real and raw and intimate and honest with yourself, and take an internal inventory of the aspects that are the problem children, just for the phrasing, these holograms here to assist you, and spend time with them every day. And one day you won't have to anymore. You're done. But that's a great way to assist, because for those of us that are out in public, whether you have a public job, the communities that we're in, whatever, you see people popping off right now because it's just too much, right? All kinds of ways that that comes through: rage, road rage, violence, whatever, all kinds of madness. Well, it's all the awakening, right? It's all different levels of consciousness trying to find an outlet, right? And so it's also a way for us to contribute as like a global grid work system, the new earth grids that we are, to do this amount of self work or self alignment and the self love, to give ourselves at an emotional level the validation, the recognition, right? All these pieces that the way that we went through the first level of our existence in the hologram of the matrix of 3D reality and modern society always was looking outside for everything, right? And now we're seeing how important it is to mine that, to data mine from inside sources where you are the source, you are at one, you have it all, you are capable. So there's a lot of empowerment right now through all of this, and a lot of grace. And the words last week were, do the work to align yourself with grace. So that way, if a crisis or some really intense stuff comes up and you have to be on the front lines in some form, not only are you like, you've set the grid work inside of yourself to respond well, but you can support others in that moment as well. So you really are in your fullness. And that's aligning yourself with grace. That's giving yourself so much love that when the shit hits the fan, you have grace. You've got this like reserve tank because you've built that, you've cultivated your light that much. And another way to look at it is, don't let your battery, your light, go below 80% anymore, because something can happen that can trigger you and you go fully unconscious and human. You could do something you regret for the rest of your life. So if you can get out ahead of it and not be reactive, but still receive the teachings, to me, that is such an amazing mastery skill, that we're working towards. And I'm going to get back to you, dear Annette.
Come on, there's nothing you're going to regret for the rest of your life. There's nothing. I'll say that. Nothing you're going to do, you're going to regret. You're going to get 2 parts of attention. You don't give a shit about it. You regret it for the rest of your human life, but you might not, you won't regret it after that. I think it's a lot of really a lot of important parts that you kind of brought forth. And I think when we start to talk about any type of health stuff, I think it is kind of can be a slippery slope for a lot of people. On, like, for me, I would never want anyone to go to a mental health person that is going to just double down on the human stuff. To now, no, that's not saying, and I think you said it really beautiful, that it's not saying it might not be appropriate sometimes, and it might not be appropriate for no matter some things people go through. I think when we keep depending on that stuff to try to fix our human consciousness, that's where we start getting into um, the dependency on it, right? It's a lot of this stuff, whether you're going to use that to get through a moment, and whether you're going to use, some type of, pharmaceutical to get through the moment, to get to the next moment. Because sometimes part of awakening and part of ascension, they're very hairy, and sometimes our awakening can last for years or decades, depending on where people are and how fast they get through it, or how long we get stuck in it. You know, so I think it's important what you said, that if it feels appropriate, and that's what it feels appropriate to do, don't judge wanting to do those things. But if you also feel like you've outgrown it, it's okay to say I've outgrown it too, and to not feel like you have to conform to it. Because to me, our human consciousness and all the realities that create our human conscious and all the human beliefs are always, they are just essentially disconnected and separated, and they're not frequencies that our body struggles to be in them. And no matter how low our human body's consciousness or frequency is, we still struggle to be in it. Very few people are happy in human realities they built. And I don't care what they have. They could have everything. We could all be sitting here saying, oh, if I had this or that, then that would make me happy. And you could go out and find someone who had this and that. And I can tell you, they're still going to be sitting there saying, oh, if I only had this or that. If I could only have this, or if I'll only be young again, or I could only, so many people I met, and you would talk to them and they would tell you something about them 40 years ago or 30 years ago. And I'm like, well, what do you do now? What's going on right now? Not 50. I don't care what happened 50 years ago or 30 years ago. So many people identify with those moments because there was something about that moment that was accepted, and something about that moment that made them feel like they mattered. And in our human consciousness, we don't get that every day. We don't get that feeling of mattering every day, and so we feel like we don't. And then we just strive to double down on finding more and more of that. So a lot of the stuff that the human beliefs would want you to go into, I think Marissa and I would never sit here and say, don't do that, because you're going to do what feels right when it feels right for you to do it. But we have to respect where everybody is. And if it doesn't feel right, then go look for something that does feel right. There's a lot of, we can talk a lot about using external things, but for a while we have to, because we don't have anything else to do. We don't know of anything else to do. We have to use certain things to activate us, whether it be going to talk to someone just to talk to someone, because we never had anyone to talk to before. I think for a lot of people, it's just that. It's just having someone to talk to. It's having someone who we can connect with and who's there to listen to us. And for a lot of people, that's all it is. And it doesn't really matter what they say. And it doesn't really matter what they do. It's just because they listen. Because when you talk to anyone who's in a human consciousness, they don't listen. And we can't really judge that because we didn't listen either. Because we don't care. I mean, that's the bottom line. Our human consciousness doesn't fucking care about anything going on with anybody. It cares about itself. And it cares about how what's going on with something else might affect us down the road. So we're a little invested on how they're doing, because it might affect me later on. But in the end of the day, I don't really give a shit. And I can sit there and pretend like I do, and I could sit there and try to convince myself I do, but we really don't. And I think when we're really honest about when we go unconscious, and when I say that, I just mean, what Marissa, I'm in my human consciousness. So when I go unconscious, that's what that means. That's what's making the choices, is my human consciousness when I go unconscious. And when I'm in that place, I don't care about anybody else. I care about me. I don't have the capacity to care about anybody else. So when you're dealing with someone in that consciousness, don't take it personal when they don't care about. They don't care. It's not an aspect that's designed to care. It doesn't have that much depth to it. Everyone wants to figure out, let's get underneath it. Let's pick the human consciousness apart. There's nothing there. There's nothing to pick apart. Your human programming, that's a different story. But our human consciousness, it's not designed for any of these grand things. It's not designed for, it's not designed for quantum. It's not designed for, anything beyond itself. And I think when we're really honest about that, and we look at the decisions we made, when we were really driven by that consciousness, and not to be upset when other people are doing the same thing. Because one, it's showing us when we did it, and it's clearing anything we have in us that's still doing it. Because when we do have stuff come up, I think the biggest thing, and I agree, it's being able to know when you're triggered. Because in our human consciousness, we would just get pissed. We didn't even segregate it off into, oh, I got triggered. We're just like, yeah, that person pissed me off. I got mad, I got sad, I got jealous, I got whatever it was. It was kind of like I got right, this person or this situation or my boss or whatever. But you don't even have the depth to think that it was a trigger. So even if you're just in that place, that's way farther than we were before. We might not be able to deal with it, but at least we recognize something happened. But when you can separate yourself from it and go deal with yourself on it and go, okay, why did that make me mad? Is it because when I was four? I mean, I always don't really get too separate off. Oh, this happened when I was four. I don't give a shit what happened to somebody when they were four. What's happening right now? If your inner child is still upset about something happening is four, let's just give some love to the inner child and don't worry about what the fuck happened when you were four. And so many times people just double down on that and double down on that, and that's the one thing when I look at a lot of some of the stuff you see on human emotional wellness. It kind of takes people back into really digging in and doubling down on a lot of stuff that sometimes it's can we just say that, yeah, that happened, we agreed to it all. And if we can get to that part, we can say, yeah, we agreed to that, we agree for all this to happen, so we can have all this stuff come up and clear the emotion. But at the end of the day, we wrote all this, we scripted this down. This was our book we wrote. They're just reading a script. We wrote the script, and they're taking on all this karma in a sense to play the bad guy, or we're playing the bad guy. And oh, I can't believe how mean I was when I did that. I was so mean back then when I did that, when I played that role. I was so mean. I was such a mean person. But we did that too. And there's just so much going on, especially in the collectives right now. Everyone's pointing the finger at everybody else, right? It's such a divide all across, especially in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I mean, but obviously all this stuff going on in the rest of the world, it's not too rosy in any other countries either. But there's such a divide about everyone pointing their finger about, oh, look what you're doing. When everyone's doing the same thing, it's just we don't want to see that. I always say, no one wants to recognize someone's being persecuted until it's you being persecuted. And until then, it's not persecution. And when you're on the end of it, oh, now it is. Now it's personal. It was a great movie. I don't know if the movie was that good, but it was a great line in it. And it was the You've Got Mail movie. And Tom Hanks was in that movie. And, he said, I know, I think Meg Ryan said it, I think he said, well, it's not personal. And she said, well, it was personal to me. And I think that's one thing even though, yes, we don't take things personal. There are different parts of Ascension. You stop taking shit personal. You understand it's not personal. It's business in a sense. It's all soul business. It's not personal. But you also have to understand that there are people that it's still personal to them. And we have to have compassion for that space for them. That even if you're past that space and it's not, you don't take anything personal anymore, it's still personal to them. And someone else might take it personal. Doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life forever and coddle them for 20 years while they continue to take it personal. But there is a space where we have to be able to see where everybody is. And that to me is quantum, to be able to see different aspects of people and see where everybody is. And everyone's not where you are. Very few people are probably where you are. Very few. Because everyone's in a different place. And you can be in a different place and in the same dimension as another person, but in different parts of that dimension, and you're technically still in a different place. Or they've dealt with something and you haven't, or you've dealt with something and they haven't yet, or they're at a different level of dealing with it than you are. And if we can get over taking it all personal, because a lot of what makes us miserable in human consciousness is one thing. People don't do what we want them to do. That's it. People don't do what we want them to do. Everything that pisses you off right now, I will guarantee you can boil it down to someone did not do what you wanted them to fucking do. Period. I'm going to kick it back to you on that one.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for all of that. It's so, so good. I should have written some things down because there's so much that comes through when I get to listen to you. Um, but I want to share, you mentioned completion with Leo energy, and I'm so glad you did because you reminded me of something else that is very important to talk about with everyone. Where were you in 2017? Because these days, right now, with this full moon in Leo, we are wrapping up an 8 year cycle where Venus was at the exact same degree in Aries 8 years ago with a Leo full moon in 2017. So, this can be a really supportive kind of quantum calendar marker for you to look at. What were you dealing with? What were you looking at back then? Relationship wise, all the pieces, money, all the pieces of the human reality, and what's coming up now. Are there any similarities, any parallels, or are you in a completely different space? Very interesting. And the people who were there at that time, and what they represented. And so, like Annette was saying about nothing being personal, the big pieces are looking at everything as a symbol. What does it represent? The thing, the money, the person, what happened. What is the energetic essence quality of it? What does it represent? And I love how you mentioned, which essentially is my one of my big issues with traditional talk therapy, is that you just talk the same shit to death. You don't move from it. So you're just regurgitating the program. You're living in the program. You're perceiving through the program. You're never transcending the fucking program. So there's a point where all of us see the same pattern and you're like, oh my God, I'm so done with that. And so then you're ready now to bring in that next level, to rise, to lift, to expand, and to see more, and to integrate it, and to no longer allow it to be running as kind of like, if you think about apps on the phone, it's not running in the background, draining the battery anymore, right? And that's all part of this beautiful work that we're sharing. Um, let's see. Another thing Annette mentioned the last time was, the human wanting to push and force. And that is such an important piece as well. That the human ego will have the stories, the human consciousness will have stories like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. So that's part of the lack we want to be aware of. So if you feel that you've got to push or force, or like, oh my God, it's not happening fast enough, it's okay to feel all that. Just observe, like, oh yeah, I'm eager, I'm excited, but we can't force the perfection, which actually will be a shortcut anyway if we just get the fuck out of the way, and just trust, right? And a big piece to remember as we go into these deeper layers, you do forget a lot of things. Like Annette mentioned, you forget a lot of the aspects of your humanness, your human story. And so it's like you cross over, and this is a second life. And you also have to relearn your tools, and you return to your quantum tools, even the ones that got you to this point, with fresh eyes. And a deeper application of the wisdom as well. So it's important to realize as we go through these template wipe experiences, make sure you have your tools close to review and see. It can assist you to orient, because sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I'm hurtling through a wormhole and I can't even stand upright through this, It's moving so fast. I'm just trying to stand up and be still and like stabilized through this to witness, to because all these layers, all these pieces are just flying off. It's like you're flying down the freeway, at like 120 miles an hour, and these pieces are flying off of you. And like, when you see the photography of like of light, and it's like, phew, it's like the speed of light. It's like the light is just like rods coming at you, and it's important to stabilize yourself and also to let it all go and to trust that it's all happening for you. And it's important because with the photonic light blasts, with the triggers, with the frequencies, the nervous system is getting rattled, and the trauma stuff is coming out where we feel discomfort or perhaps some forgetting, So it's just important to know that all of this is normal. All of this is normal. And this isn't the kind of stuff you could talk to with traditional, I don't even want to say traditional medicine actually, because traditional medicine supersedes, right, modern psychiatric care completely. And if we tried to talk about any of this stuff, they would have a whole list of diagnosis for us of what we are, which isn't true, right? With everything that we're talking about, and it doesn't recognize quantum entanglement, right? All these beautiful pieces. So I also wanted to share when we talk about the holograms. And part of the fun stuff, I want to share a couple fun quantum tools because we go really deep with this and it's pretty serious. It's gnarly work. We work our asses off to exist and to function and to continue to expand and to never let it be. How do we say it? It's not that we're never satisfied, but there's more and you want to keep expanding and learning and growing and evolving and not getting stuck. And that's kind of part of plasma is like the beat goes on, right? The flow goes on, the wheel of life keeps turning. Like it's never just you're done, we'll be done when we're done. So I want to share some fun tools. So I'm going to share, we talked about the holodeck and how you can like program you can enter into the Google, the conscious quantum cosmic Google, anything. And through quantum entanglement, merge your consciousness with the subject and explore it more. So, you could, if you want to have a conversation with, I'm just going to be silly, like Sigmund Freud or Dolores Cannon, right? Or anything that you want to learn from, or to merge your consciousness with the tree and learn the spiritual elemental quantum sentience that's so above what the human functions at with quantum consciousness. If you think about trees and how they work with the mycelium, they're a collective consciousness, right? So you just get into your piece and just bring your awareness to think about the thing and feel with your heart, feel and merge with it. And so through quantum entanglement, you can expand your learning because every day we're in the mystery school or the mastery school. Everything is, right? Every person is a mirror to assist us, right? Every instance is something to assist us to continue the quantum jumps. And we're really, with how much resistance we do or do not have, then we're kind of really in charge of how fast we go to an extent. And then also you can't push, right? So you have to trust the flow, the cosmic tides. So one of those is quantum entanglement, where I said, if you want to learn or master something, you can download the plasma stream. So imagine, what do we say when we're going to watch a movie, or even right now, we're on a live stream? Well, where do these words come from? They come from our light body. They come from the quantum experience that's trying to be humanized. So you are the stream. Tune into the stream, and just allow it to come forth from your own Akashic library. So just open up to the fact that you are a walking library of light, of information from many civilizations and all the things that you are in your soul. Everything is here within you. You are a library walking around, this crystal library. And you can connect and download or flow load. My friend Marixa says flow load. It flows through your beingness, right? So you can stream from your own Akashic library and you just ask and you just stay in your heart and your humble space of curiosity, pure, innocent joy of a child. Like, ooh, we're going to go down this magical, journey. So I wanted to share that as one. And then another is an anchor or a marker. And so when me and my friend were in Sedona last year, this is called the Sedona car. Okay. A little story. When we were in Sedona, we were like, oh my gosh, let's rent this car where the paint job is this like burnt orange metallic and it looks like the Red Rocks because we're going to merge with those fucking Red Rocks. We're going to become the heart of Sedona, right? So we got this car. It was the only car in town that looked like that. And we were remarking on that and how funny it was. Well, within the next day, that car was everywhere. The color was everywhere. Everywhere we parked, there would be two other cars of completely different models as well. A pickup truck and like a Subaru hatchback thing, you know, all the same color, completely different kinds of car. So that was really interesting to see, like, oh my gosh, it was a multiplicity just by bringing your awareness, right? And so then merging your consciousness with those red rocks and the stargates of Sedona, like we are that vortex, like it is us, we are the new earth grid. So all of this was kind of wrapped up in this concept of this Sedona car. So I come back to Washington State and I start to notice that I see cars like that. And I'm like, oh shit, there's a Sedona car. And for months, I would ask my universe, what does this mean? Can you give me more about it? And universe would just say, sometimes it takes a long time to decode because it's just kind of like very short. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know. I need to keep like unpacking this. But basically, it was, well, that's a Sedona Stargate. And I'd be like, okay, well, can you tell me more? And I had to ask, can you please show me more? finally, I got a bigger chunk, which is when you see this car, it is your universe telling you to put your entire beingness at a conscious quantum level back into Sedona or back onto Mount Shasta or back on the big island of Hawaii, whatever the vortex spaces are for you, where you have felt your body become so alive and anything is possible. And your root chakra has zero trauma in it and zero like holding you back, zero density. You are in a new earth high, like high frequency. So I realized I was like, oh my God, this is my universe giving me an anchor point when I'm out and about to remind me, set it up, set it back, reset, reset, reset. And I'd be like, oh my God. So every time I see the Sedona car, I'm driving and I'm like, okay, my entire beingness is remembering what it was like when I was in Sedona, how happy, how giddy, anything was possible, dream realities, powerful manifestation, like being so magnetic, right? So that was a way for me to very rapidly align my entire beingness consciously with a very high frequency potential that I have actually viscerally felt. And so this is a tool for you. Decide, maybe it's a color of a car, or maybe it's, oh, every time I see this flower or this unicorn or whatever the symbol is for you, or a diamond shape, whatever, which could be all the signs as you drive. A lot of them are diamond shape. But start to set up markers with your universe or anchor points with your universe to whatever it is that you want to know. Lisa Transcendence Brown shared a really good one where it's like you can know what dimension you're in by certain things, perhaps, if that's what you want assistance with, to start to understand what dimension. So decide, what is the symbol for you? Like, oh God, I forgot. I shut back down. I got stuck in my head. I got back into my human ego again. What's the symbol of that for you? And it will assist you so you can just bang, 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 pop out of it. Or perhaps like me, reset your entire beingness to assist you to raise the consciousness of your body and bring the highest possible frequencies into your entire beingness right now. Boom, reset, regrid yourself. So these are some fun toys, tools. I say they're toys because they're really fun to enjoy playing with your reality too, right? Because we work really hard and you deserve to play hard. And oh, Marixa says, for me, it's a bird standing on top of a tree. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So it can be all kinds of wonderful things that are easy for you. And then, oh my goodness, my universe is communicating with me, through the mirror verse. Like we have so many beautiful high potentials of what's possible to make this a more engaging and interactive experience, right? Because I know a lot of us are inside a lot doing all this work in the inner realm. So getting to be with you all here and with Annette is a huge treat for me. And I told her, I was like, girl, because I went through it this week. It took me a week to be able to feel like, okay, I'm through the wormhole. I'm going through it, but at least I can stand up right now, while I'm going through it. And I told her that this show and the ability to connect like this is an anchor point. And then she talked about getting to have conscious conversations with others, right? So find your anchor points and call more of them forth. You deserve it. And I'm going to pass it to you now. I know we're getting close to time too.
Yeah, I'll make this my last one and then I'll let you wrap up and we can ask if anyone has any questions. But that's a great point. I kind of forget sometimes about asking for signs, or how do I know if this is aligned, or how do I know when I can do this? And a lot of times, sometimes when I want to do something, I'll be like, oh, I want to do it right now. And I remember I had a friend years ago who made a comment that, no good decisions are made at 2 a.m. And And I kind of remind myself of that quite a bit sometimes, but I feel like I have to make a choice, because your universe is never going to force you to make a choice unless you have not made one and the whole shit's about to come down on top of you because you haven't made one and you put one off and you knew you had to do one and you avoided it. But it's going to give you an opportunity to sit with it and make a choice. And if someone's rushing you to make a choice, then they're not respecting you in that moment. Unless, once again, you have just intentionally not made a choice and now your universe is going to make it for you. But we're going to go with the point that, you just need to really, it's nothing wrong with taking that. Our human never wants to take the time, right? It wants to just make the choice. If I don't do it now, someone else is going to take that, or someone else is going to get that, and I'm going to miss out on it. And we don't really care so much if it's aligned. We just want it for whatever reason in that moment. We want it. We want that thing, um, So I would kind of make a marker for me that's like, okay, if I'm supposed to do this thing, I'll get a text. I don't care who the text is from. I would just say, I'll get a text in the next 15 minutes. And if I don't get the text, I can't do it today because I know it's not a line for me to do it today. And for a while, you do that. And for a while, that stuff stops working because your universe wants you to go inside and get the answer and stop depending on the external stuff, even though you're doing the external stuff too. So you'll find this stuff works for a while and you'll go for a period where it won't work. I'm back with the birds. For me, when I see a blue jay, I know whatever I'm thinking about is a line for me to do. That then when I see the blue jay, I'm like, oh, this aligned. It's a line for me to do that. But if you're really thinking about something, go, is this aligned? Set a marker. So it can be anything. You have a specific person text me, or have have usually I'll be like, okay, if I get a text in 10 minutes. But sometimes what'll happen is I'll get a text, but I'll forget what the question was, and I'll be like, oh, what was that? What was that? I was gonna do something if I got a text in 10 minutes. I got a text and I cannot remember what I'd asked. And that'll start happening too, because you shift dimensional consciousness and you don't remember, anything. So I think that's a good one to play with. But don't be upset if it stops working sometimes, because your universe will take it away for a while. And get you to connect inside, because most of the time we kind of know the answer. We just want that external validation. Like, I already kind of know that shit's not aligned, but I'm kind of hoping that I'll get some kind of sign that it is. And I'll be like, okay, let me get a text in 10 minutes. Okay, in 15 minutes. Okay, in 20 minutes. I mean, if I don't get in 25 minutes, I'm shutting it down. It's not aligned. But you'll kind of find yourself sort of, you know that's not aligned, or I used to say if I see a fox, because I used to be at a place where I didn't see that many foxes, and if I saw a fox, and sometimes I get really, if I see 2 foxes on a Friday and it's raining, then I'll know I can do this one thing. I would get really like out there with it, right? And sometimes I would see, it might take months, but I'd see 2 foxes on a Friday and it would be raining during my walk, and I'd be like, oh shit, today's the day I get to do this, because today is aligned. There will be a lot of stuff that we kind of know it's not, and we kind of want the validation that for some reason it is. And I think that's important to, we can game the system, and I can remember talking, when we're in our human consciousness, if you had a problem, you knew what friend to call to get the advice you wanted, because you had friends that were hard asses and you had friends that were doormats. And if you wanted someone to tell you to be a doormat, you'd call that friend. If you wanted someone to tell you to be a hard ass, you'd call that friend. You would game the system, and we can still do the same thing. Our human consciousness knows how to game the system a little bit. So when you're looking for signs, really look and see, is it, I really want to know, because I just really am not sure right now. And this is if you got a lot of emotion around it too, sometimes it can be a great guidance. Because I love signs and I used to do it all the time and I still do it. But for a while it won't work. And sometimes it stops working because you need to connect farther. And sometimes we kind of know the answer, but we just don't like it. And we try to kind of drag it out by looking for all these signs that aren't kind of appearing, because we don't really like the answer. And just the last thing I'm gonna end on this, and then I'll let you open up for questions and let you kind of close out. I used to always go into the consciousness of my animals, my cat, to see if they weren't feeling good or something was going on. I'm like, oh, what's going on? So I go in there and go, is your foot hurt? And then I just feel in my body what was going on with them, right? Like, oh, my hand's hurting. It's their right paw. Let me look at that. Because it was funny, because when you would go to a traditional vet, they'd be like, if only we knew what was going on with them. And I'm like, oh, but you do, you just go in there and find out, right? Just like if you walk by your house plants and all of a sudden you think about watering them, you're reading the field. It's really all you're doing is reading the field. I mean, you can call it going into the different consciousness. You're just opening yourself up to that consciousness stream. You're opening yourself up to that field, right? And you can go by and you can hear that and feel that and be like, okay, yeah, how does that animal feel? What is going on? Or if I use colloidal silver, how's that going to make you feel? Is that better? Or do you want me to use arnica? And you can kind of just take yourself down different paths, different realities. You go, okay, if I try arnica on you, is that going to make you feel better? Do we need to do some Russ talks? Or what do we need to do here? And just kind of ride with it. And I think animals are a good way to start. Just kind of going into that consciousness. So I do that all the time now with my cat and be like, all right, what's going on with you? Let me see what's going to make it better. Let me just go in there and look around and see what's going on. because it does kind of give you, because we are all connected. It doesn't have to mean we all got to be huddled up together in a room, but we all are still all connected. So, okay, I'm going to end it there for me tonight, and I will kick it over to you to do final questions and close out.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you, Annette. You brought it back to the body because I was going to share. I have some things to share on that, But if anyone has any questions, and then we're going to wrap up here. I know we're getting in over an hour now. So one of the things I wanted to add here was to feel in your body at the end of the day, as we continue through and go deeper and deeper, what will be reliable for you is your body. And I like to say, our body is a beautiful, finely made instrument, and the light body. And the more that we sensitize ourselves, you can tell everything, just like Annette was sharing, like she can feel what's going on with her kitties or others, in her own parts of the body. And there's this like remote quantum connection here. But also with anything, you can ask yes or no, and you'll feel it. You'll feel, and you can figure out for you what are the markers in your body. Is all of a sudden your belly is tense? Do you feel a tightness, a locking down? Do you feel open and expansive? How do you define your yes and your no, right? Or your yay or nay? Sometimes people will feel like, oh, they're swaying forward when it's a yes, like they're leaning into the thing, and they're leaning back when it's a no, so figure out for you what it is. And another wonderful tool that I learned from Lisa Brown is this is using the body as well. With anything coming, you say, I'm ready for, and fill in the blank, and then feel in your body where you are not ready. And this can assist you to quantum jump stuff, because then you can feel, oh my God, I just felt a twinge in my belly. Like, what's that about? And all of a sudden you've discovered, well, I don't have enough of this to do that yet, or whatever the story, the hologram, the belief system, whatever. So this is a great way. Anything coming up, anything that you're wanting to get ready to do, or it's a dream, but it's not happening. And you're like, why isn't it happening? And of course, there's alignment. There's a lot of parts to this, but
Well,
a
let me
great
just say, but just for what you said there, it's you're sending a dual transmission. Like you're consciously saying I want this, but your body's consciousness is saying I don't want this, right? And I forgot about that. I'm going to do that tonight for something I've been thinking about to see, because yeah, that it's like you're sending out two very conflicting messages, and your universe is like, all right, we're just not going to do anything because I don't know what the fuck you want, so we're just not going to do anything. All right, I'm muting. I'm muting.
And that's so big because a lot of people are talking about like bifurcations and stuff, and they're looking at it, as I do too sometimes, as like the bifurcations between the dimensions of society, and different frequencies of consciousness, and we're moving apart. But lately for me it's been inside. Where am I split? Where am I split? So the body will assist us. If you feel stuck on something, and or you're like, why isn't this happening? Like, I feel like it's the truth. I feel like it's aligned. I feel like it's the next level for me. And I feel like I've been working to get ready. I am ready. So this tool from Lisa, say, I am ready for this move, or I'm ready for whatever. And then you're going to receive the data inside, of why there's the split or where. And then you can nip it in the bud, and so it starts to become so awesome because we are capable of so much. And then when it's not happening, then when we've done these tools and we've done everything that we know we can do to align, and it's taking its time, just understand that there are processes to things. We can't always see, every piece, but we can do a lot more than we've ever done before, right? And especially when it's coming from a pure place of, with our open heart. So it's different than the 4D. And this again is all part of the holograms. You can insert yourself into a reality, like start entertaining possibilities, start entertaining realities. Oh, wouldn't it be so cool if that happened? Wow. And then it forks off, it splits off into, oh my God, it would be so cool if this happened. Wow. And you're just playing with realities. But all of a sudden you're just putting out these beautiful, soul aligned, high integrity, conscious, parallel realities and possibilities. So you're kind of filling more, almost like you're blowing like up a hot air balloon of like more potentials for liftoff, you know? So you want to play, you want to get into the playfulness with this as well. And that will assist you to balance out. So make sure you're bringing in your inner child, your divine inner fun, and then also your ancient elder, you know, wise one too. And just make sure you get to play between the two of them a lot. And if we don't have any questions, I guess we'll wrap it up. But thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Annette.
Thank you. It was super fun once again. It was a lot of fun. I think you hit on just about all of it at the end, but it's just fun to kind of play and just say it would be nice if that happened. It might not be highest line forever. Might be highest. It might not be highest line. It might never happen. But just saying, wouldn't that be fun for that to happen? Wouldn't that be fun for that to happen? And just looking at it and stop dreading it. You know, like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen. It's just kind of just twisting it a different way. And because as our human, that's all we thought about was, oh, I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. And then that's what the shit that always happened. And then we say, oh, what if that happened? And what if I won the lottery? It's probably it might not be alive for me to win the lottery, but wow, wouldn't it be cool if that happened? It just shifts your vibration too. It gets you into this fun place. And you're just kind of planting seeds and just putting stuff out there. So, all right.
Thank you. We'll see you all soon. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Annette. And all of our information for both of us, if you want to look at our work or anything, want to work with us, anything, we have all kinds of stuff. Both of our websites are in the description box here. Art of Intuition, right, Annette.com for Annette. She's got amazing stuff. And she's an amazing resource, as you can see. We both offer really different energetics, and it's really cool because we're flip-flopping and wrapping it up and giving it to you nice in a nice little bow as well. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you next time. Take care.